Once a soldier, always a soldier. These words were spoken by General Douglas MacArthur, a legendary soldier who played a major role in the history of the United States of America. Security is one of the biggest concerns for countries all over the world, whether powerful or weak. This is why nations invest huge amounts of money in security-related activities, regardless of the size of their economies. When security is mentioned, people usually think first of the military, and rightly so, because the strength of a country's army often determines the level of its national security. In most countries, the highest military authority is held by the head of state, whether a president or a king. These leaders make final military decisions and are known as Commanders-in-Chief, CIC, even if they are civilians or business people such as Donald Trump, the President of the United States of America. This shows the extraordinary power held by heads of state. However, sometimes the situation is different. In some cases, the head of state is a professional soldier who fully understands warfare. A good example is Russian President Vladimir Putin, who is a professional soldier and reached the rank of colonel. He also served as a senior intelligence officer in the KGB of the former Soviet Union. Many such leaders are soldiers who have fought in multiple wars, led troops on the front lines, and faced combat without fear. When such individuals come to power, they hold both political and military authority. Today, we are looking at 10 African presidents known for their military strength, battlefield experience, and authority. This video does not rank them as first, second, or third because that could appear biased. Especially that military bravery cannot truly be measured by numbers. You are now watching Survival in Narration, SIN as abbreviation. If this is your first time here, remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the powerful stories shared here. Welcome. Ibrahim Traoré, President of Burkina Faso. Traoré is the President of Burkina Faso, a country in West Africa. He became head of state on September 30th, 2022, after overthrowing his fellow soldier, Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, who had been in power for only 8 months. Damiba himself had earlier removed former President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore, who ruled from 2015. Ibrahim Traoré was born on March 14, 1988, making him 37 years old today. This makes him the second youngest head of state in the world. He joined the military in 2009 and completed his military education at the Georges Namoano Military Academy. He later trained in Morocco, where he specialized in air defense forces. After returning to Burkina Faso, he served in the northern Kaya region. In 2014, 5 years after joining the army, he was promoted to the rank of lieutenant and deployed to Mali under the United Nations peacekeeping mission known as MINUSMA during the Mali war involving Islamist armed groups, including those linked to Azawad. In 2020, he was promoted to the rank of captain. Over time, Traoré became frustrated by corruption in his country. He observed that leaders were stealing public funds instead of investing them in national development. This pushed him to organize fellow soldiers who shared the same concerns. Together, they decided to overthrow the government. Today, Captain Ibrahim Traoré leads Burkina Faso. Since taking power, significant changes have been seen in the country. In just 3 years, Traoré has achieved developments that some leaders failed to deliver after decades in power. These include modern roads, new buildings, factories, and stadiums. However, he also faces serious threats. Many enemies want him dead to seize power. He has survived several well-planned assassination attempts.
You like Ibrahim Traoré?
Oh, that is my president.
I stand firmly with Ibrahim Traoré. If they dare touch Ibrahim Traoré, they will regret.
Ibrahim Traoré is good.
Ibrahim Traoré is good.
Good.
Very good.
Very good.
Brice Oligui Nguema, President of Gabon. Brice Oligui Nguema has been President of Gabon since August 30th, 2023. He came to power after overthrowing President Ali Bongo, who was also his cousin. This coup was part of a series of military takeovers in West and Central Africa, where leaders were accused of serving French interests rather than their own people. Nguema was born on March 3, 1975. He is a general in the Gabonese army, a rank that reflects high military authority. Ali Bongo became president after the death of his father, Omar Bongo, who ruled Gabon for 38 years from 1967. Altogether, the Bongo family ruled Gabon for 54 years. Ironically, Brice Oligui Nguema himself belongs to the Bongo family. He studied at the Royal Military Academy of Meknes in Morocco and served in the army during Omar Bongo's presidency. In 2019, he was promoted to Brigadier General and appointed head of the Presidential Guard, responsible for protecting President Ali Bongo. This position gave him the power to overthrow his cousin easily. After the coup, he told the French newspaper Le Monde that Ali Bongo had been given retirement because he was no longer capable of leading. Mamadi Doumbouya, President of Guinea. Mamadi Doumbouya has been President of Guinea since September 5, 2021, after overthrowing President Alpha Condé. He was born on March 4, 1980. One of the main reasons behind the coup was the belief that Alpha Condé had become a tool of French interests. Doumbouya removed many systems linked to French influence. He was a commander in Guinea's elite special forces and one of the most respected intelligence officers in the country. Due to his exceptional skills, he was promoted to lieutenant colonel in 2019 and later to colonel. After taking power in 2021, he was elevated to the rank of general and stepped down from leading the special forces. Assimi Goïta, President of Mali. Assimi Goïta has been President of Mali since May 28, 2021, after overthrowing President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. He is a professional soldier and former member of Mali's elite special forces, holding the rank of colonel. He led numerous high-risk operations against jihadist groups during the Mali conflict that began in 2012. In 2018, while fighting in Mali, he met Mamadi Doumbouya. At the time, neither knew they would both become presidents. Seeing corruption and poor leadership, Goïta joined the National Committee for the Salvation of the People, CNSP. With public support, they overthrew the government. In 2021, he officially became president of Mali. Abiy Ahmed Ali is the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, and in this country, the Prime Minister is the head of state. He was born on August 15, 1976, and he has been the Prime Minister of Ethiopia since the year 2018. In his military life, Abiy Ahmed Ali became a soldier at a very young age, at just 14 years old, in the year 1991, shortly after the death of his elder brother, who was also a soldier. At a very young age, Abiy Ahmed had a strong interest in politics, and he quickly joined the Oromo Democratic Party, which was also a political party that opposed the ruling military government known as DAG. This military regime came to power after killing Emperor Haile Selassie, and during its rule, the DAG military government killed people publicly by beheading them, especially politicians who opposed the government. Even civilians who failed to cooperate with their activities were publicly executed so that others could watch and learn a lesson. However, due to public uprisings and rejection of the dictatorship imposed by this military regime, in the year 1991, the people themselves overthrew the DAG military government. As a soldier, Abiy Ahmed fought in the Eritrean War that took place from 1998 to 2000, while at the same time holding responsibilities within his party as a youth leader. During this period, Abiy Ahmed was known for consistently stating that war does not solve any problem in this world, even while he himself was a soldier.
I truly believe peace is a way of life, war a form of death and destruction.
When Abiy Ahmed Ali came to power, Ethiopia was facing countless problems, mainly internal wars, including the Tigray War and other regional conflicts, making the situation feel like rebuilding a broken country piece by piece. At that time, Abiy Ahmed immediately introduced a new political approach focused on promoting peace within the country, placing this vision above all other priorities, which later earned him the Nobel Peace Prize. Mahamat Idris Déby Itno has been the president of Chad since the year 2021, following the death of his father, Idris Déby, who had ruled the country for 30 years. Idris Déby, the father of Mahamat Déby, was a powerful soldier who never feared battle, and in fact, he died in combat after being shot during clashes with the armed rebel group known as FACT, which continues to oppose the government to this day. Opponents of the Chadian government claim that the Déby family seized the country and monopolized power for about 36 years, without doing anything beneficial for the people of Chad. They say, yes, they did absolutely nothing for the country of Chad during the 36 years they were in power, except taking care of their own families. They also add that Chad is rich in natural resources, yet it remains among the top 10 poorest countries in the world. In his military career, Mahamat Idris Déby received his initial military training inside Chad before continuing his training in France in the year 2013. This advanced military training earned Mahamat Idris a position among Chad's elite special forces, which were deployed on peacekeeping missions during the Mali conflict. During his leadership in the year 2022, Boko Haram carried out a terrorist attack on November 22nd in the Ngubu area, killing 10 soldiers. At that time, no significant response followed because the Islamist militant group carried out the attack and immediately disappeared.
مسيرة العبور إلى المستقبل متحملا المسؤولية وأمانتها ما دام في الصدر قلب ينبض ونفس يتردد.
Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, President of the country of Egypt. Abdel Fattah has led the country since the year 2014. Before becoming president, he served as Minister of Defense under former President Mohamed Morsi, who ruled Egypt from 2011 to 2014. Abdel Fattah was born on November 19, 1954, in Cairo. In the 1980s, Abdel Fattah studied at the Egyptian Military Academy, and after completing his military education, he officially joined the Egyptian Army. By 2008, Abdel Fattah had become a highly skilled military officer and was appointed to command forces in the Alexandria region, where he also served as head of intelligence for that area. In 2012, President Mohamed Morsi appointed him as Minister of Defense and granted him the rank of Colonel General, a rank that rarely exists in military structures except in very few countries. In 2014, he was promoted to the rank of Field Marshal and appointed Deputy Prime Minister. However, before Abdel Fattah became Deputy Prime Minister, President Mohamed Morsi's government had already begun to weaken. At that time, it was widely claimed that the United States of America was playing a major role in undermining Mohamed Morsi's government. Protesters filled the streets carrying photos of Mohamed Morsi crossed out with prohibition signs, demanding his resignation. During this period, Abdel Fattah gave an interview to the American media outlet known as The Washington Post, accusing the United States and its president, Barack Obama, of fueling division among the Egyptian people. He stated, "Obama abandoned Egypt after creating so many problems, and we will never forget that." In 2014, citizens and supporters of Abdel Fattah el-Sisi took to the streets urging him to run for president. They carried his photos and Egyptian national flags while calling on him to contest the presidency. As a result, on March 26, 2014, the former Minister of Defense, Deputy Prime Minister, and career military officer officially resigned from his positions and announced his candidacy for president. He won by an overwhelming majority of votes and was sworn in as President of Egypt on June 8, 2014. Among presidents who were and still are elite military fighters are several leaders from East Africa. These leaders possess remarkable achievements and extraordinary histories, recognized not only in Africa, but across the entire world. Evariste Ndayishimiye, President of the Republic of Burundi. He is also one of the heads of state who were exceptional soldiers. He is a national leader who enjoys strong popularity among the people he governs. This popularity comes from his humble behavior and the way he often appears among ordinary citizens. He is frequently seen carrying sacks of potatoes, lifting pigs, sharing traditional beer with the people, farming together with them, and engaging in many activities that are rarely done by other presidents. This has made many Burundians admire and appreciate him. Evariste Ndayishimiye was born in 1968 and began leading Burundi in 2020 after being elected by a large majority of citizens, winning the election with 71% of the votes. Ndayishimiye became a soldier by nature when he joined a group called CNDD-FDD, which was an armed movement opposing the government that was in power at the time. The CNDD-FDD movement was founded in 1994 during the Burundian Civil War, which was a very violent ethnic conflict that erupted shortly after the death of the Burundian president at that time, Melchior Ndadaye. In Burundi, ethnic killings had reached extreme levels between Hutu and Tutsi communities, with people killing one another. However, the largest number of victims were from the Hutu ethnic group. In 1995, Evariste Ndayishimiye was studying law in his second year at the National University. However, the killings, which mainly targeted Hutu people, reached the university as well, and many students were killed. At that time, Evariste Ndayishimiye and some of his friends were lucky enough to survive. He then made the decision to join the armed struggle and found himself in the CNDD-FDD movement, National Council for the Defense of Democracy, Forces for the Defense of Democracy. This made Evariste Ndayishimiye a strong fighter who fought in various regions of the country, such as Bujumbura, Cibitoke, and other areas. Throughout the war, he was often seen on the front lines of battle. As a battlefield commander, his role was to motivate the soldiers he led. For the CNDD-FDD, the war against the government ended in 2005, marking the definitive end of the civil war after 12 years, starting from 1993. At that time, the movement that had been fighting the government transitioned into the ruling authority. Evariste Ndayishimiye, who had fought with great dedication, was promoted in military rank and became a major general. During the war, he earned the nickname Neva, which he is still known by today as Major General Neva. Neva is an acronym derived from his name, Ndayishimiye Evariste, After the Arusha peace agreements of 2005, which aimed to end the ongoing war, on April 8, 2005, the CNDD-FDD was officially recognized as a political party. From this party came the head of state, Pierre Nkurunziza, who was also an exceptional former rebel soldier and became president of Burundi in 2005. Evariste Ndayishimiye, who was one of Pierre Nkurunziza's closest allies, also became one of the most powerful soldiers under his leadership. In 2020, Ndayishimiye Evariste became president of the Republic of Burundi. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni was born on September 15, 1944. At that time, his father, Amos Kaguta, was a senior soldier in the royal forces during the colonial period, when Uganda was under British rule. In 1970, Museveni joined a rebel military movement fighting against the brutal dictatorship of Idi Amin Dada. Later, in 1979, Museveni, together with other experienced fighters, including Rwandan soldiers living in Uganda at the time, among them the current president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, and Fred Giza Ruwigema, joined forces with the Tanzanian army led by Julius Kambarage Nyerere, and overthrew dictator Idi Amin Dada, removing him from power. After Idi Amin's removal, Apollo Milton Obote, who had been overthrown by Amin in a 1971 coup, returned to power after winning the 1980 elections. However, by 1985, the situation changed again for Milton Obote. The same people who had helped remove Idi Amin now turned against Obote, because he was no different from Amin. He also killed civilians, and anyone suspected of opposing him was executed. By that time, more than 100,000 civilians had been killed under Milton Obote's rule. This clearly showed that Obote had never changed, because even before his overthrow, he had already been responsible for killing civilians. At that point, elite commandos, including Yoweri Museveni, his close Rwandan allies, and strong-willed Ugandan soldiers, decided to plan the overthrow of Milton Obote's government. This was a full liberation of Uganda after more than 20 years of torture and suffering inflicted on civilians day and night by successive regimes. On January 29, 1986, the people of Uganda were liberated, and Yoweri Museveni became president of Uganda. This is why many Ugandans value Museveni highly, because before his leadership, ordinary citizens had no voice. However, as no leader is loved by everyone, many people criticize Museveni, accusing him of clinging to power and being too old. They argue that he has refused to step down and allow the youth to lead, having ruled Uganda for nearly 40 years. Paul Kagame, President of the Republic of Rwanda. He was born on October 23, 1957, and is the youngest child in a family of 6 siblings. Paul Kagame is an exceptional soldier and military commander who led the RPF Inkotanyi forces that liberated Rwanda in 1994. When Paul Kagame was only 2 years old, his family, along with more than 100,000 other Rwandans, had their homes burned down and were forced into exile, becoming refugees in foreign countries as if they had no homeland. Many others were killed. All of this was carried out by a bad government, driven by divisive and discriminatory ideology. Most of those whose homes were burned fled north and ended up in Uganda, where they continued their lives in refugee camps. At the refugee camps, Paul Kagame and other young children studied in temporary schools, where they were taught subjects including English, a language that was not taught in Rwanda at the time. He continued his education and later completed secondary school at Kampala Secondary School. In 1977 and 1978, when Kagame was only 19 years old, he visited his homeland Rwanda, but he did not feel safe. The reason he did not feel safe was that the same leaders who had forced him into exile were still in power. and the ideology of ethnic division was still dominant. In 1979, Kagame was among the soldiers who overthrew Idi Amin Dada, as previously mentioned. In 1980, elections were held, and Milton Obote became president of Uganda once again, as already discussed. However, it was widely known that Milton Obote was a dictator, making it difficult to believe that he could have legitimately won the elections while actively killing civilians. Because of this, Museveni accused Milton Obote of stealing votes. Additionally, Obote deeply hated Rwandans and treated them as enemies simply because they were Rwandan. As a result, Rwandans living in Uganda and those in refugee camps were subjected to severe mistreatment under the ruling government. It was during this time that Yoweri Museveni, Paul Kagame, and their friend Fred Gisa Rwigema decided to fight against the oppression affecting both Ugandans and Rwandans. In 1985, the dictatorship of Milton Obote came to an end. This marked the complete liberation of Uganda, and Paul Kagame was immediately appointed head of military intelligence due to his exceptional skills in military intelligence. He later received advanced training in Tanzania and Cuba to sharpen his intelligence expertise. Although they served Uganda, they never forgot their mission to liberate their homeland. On October 1, 1990, the RPF Inkotanyi forces entered Rwanda. At that time, the ruling government considered the RPF to be its main enemy. However, when President Juvenal Habyarimana realized that the RPF was far stronger than expected, the government agreed to peace negotiations. The RPF demanded that all violence and discrimination against civilians stop and that RPF forces be integrated into the national army. The government agreed, and the RPF withdrew from all the territories it had captured. However, the government failed to honor the agreement. Preparations for the genocide were already far advanced, and the genocide was carried out. In July 1994, the genocide was stopped. The country then began rebuilding from nothing because the destruction and killings had been extreme, including atrocities committed by government soldiers against civilians. After the RPF stopped the genocide, those responsible for the killings fled to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where they later formed the armed group known as the FDLR. This is where today's narration ends. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can get notified for such special videos. Please also watch the video currently on your screen. It is very interesting as well. Thank you for staying with Survival in Narration, abbreviated as SIN.